Welcome. Today, we're not starting with a battle and not with a hero. We're starting with a question. How does history really change? Most of the time, history changes when people feel safe, when life looks normal, when no one believes that this moment will be remembered forever. The moments that shape the world are often quiet. A message written in secret, a mountain that looks harmless, a decision made without knowing its consequences.
At the time, no one called these moments history. They were just another day, right before everything changed.
In this video, we'll explore real historical events, documented, verified, and preserved by time. Stories that sound impossible, not because they're legends, but because they truly happened. Stay with us, because sometimes history doesn't announce itself. It whispers. In the year 79 AD, Pompeii was not a city waiting to die. It was alive, busy, confident. No one in this Roman town believed they were standing beneath a ticking clock. Pompeii was a wealthy Roman city near the Bay of Naples. Its people enjoyed public baths, theaters, fast food shops, and luxury villas. Life here was comfortable, almost modern. What they did not know was that Mount Vesuvius was not a mountain. It was a volcano, and it had been sleeping for centuries.
Earthquakes were common in the region. The people of Pompeii had felt them before, so when the ground shook again, they ignored it. History would later remember this as their last mistake.
On August 24, 79 AD, everything changed. Without warning, Vesuvius exploded. A column of ash and gas shot nearly 30 kilometers into the sky. Within hours, daylight disappeared. Ash fell so thick it blocked the sun. People did not know if it was night or the end of the world. Panic spread faster than the ash. Some tried to flee. Others hid inside their homes, believing walls could protect them. One man survived to tell the story. Pliny the Younger, a Roman writer, watched the disaster from afar. His letters are the only eyewitness account we have today.
Many stayed inside. They believed the danger was falling stones. They did not know the real threat was invisible.
Late that night, the deadliest phase began. Superheated clouds of gas and ash, moving faster than a car, rushed toward the city. These clouds were over 400 degrees Celsius. Anyone caught in them died instantly. Not burned, not buried, but killed in seconds.
By morning, Pompeii was gone, buried under meters of volcanic ash, a city erased in less than 24 hours.
Time passed, empires fell, and Pompeii disappeared from memory. In the 1700s, workers accidentally uncovered something incredible, a Roman city perfectly preserved. Archaeologists found people frozen in their final moments. Their homes, their meals, their lives paused forever. Pompeii became a warning, a lesson in human arrogance, and a gift of science. The true horror of Pompeii is not how it died, but how normal everything was until the final hours. Vesuvius still stands today, quiet, watching, just like it did before Pompeii disappeared overnight. In 1788, Europe was at war. The Austrian Empire faced the Ottoman forces in Eastern Europe. What happened next would become one of the strangest military disasters in history. The Austrian army was massive and divided. It was made of many ethnic groups, different languages, different cultures. Communication was already fragile. One night near the town of Crises, a small cavalry unit moved ahead of the main army. Their mission was simple: scout for Ottoman troops. They found no enemy. Instead, they found alcohol, a decision that would change everything. Discipline collapsed. The soldiers drank, relaxed, and forgot where they were. War faded into the background. Hours later, infantry units arrived. They demanded their share of the alcohol. The cavalry refused. Words turned into fists. Then fists turned into gunfire. One accidental shot shattered the night. Someone shouted one word, "Turks!" That was all it took. In the confusion, no one could understand each other. Languages clashed. Orders failed. Fear took control. Units began firing at their own army. They believed the Ottomans had attacked. The army collapsed into chaos. Thousands were killed or injured without a single enemy soldier present. By morning, silence returned. The battlefield told a terrifying story. 2 days later, the Ottoman army arrived. They found an enemy already defeated. By itself. The Austrian Empire tried to bury the incident, but history did not forget. Poor communication, lack of discipline, and fear, that is what destroyed the army. Karen Sieves became a lesson taught in military history, not about bravery, but about chaos. This was not a defeat by an enemy. It was a defeat by confusion, one of the most unbelievable battles ever recorded.
In the year 1410, King Martin I of Aragon ruled a kingdom under pressure. His health was failing. His only legitimate son had already died, and the future of the crown was uncertain. Martin was not a warrior king. He was a ruler burdened by politics, succession crises, and internal disputes. Stress surrounded him long before the night that would make him famous. On the evening of May 31st, 1410, the king attended a feast. Heavy food, strong wine, late-night conversation. Nothing unusual for a medieval court. Contemporary chronicles note that the king was suffering from severe indigestion that night. Medieval diets were rich in meat and fat. Combined with age and stress, his body was already under strain. Enter Bora, the court jester. Unlike modern portrayals, medieval jesters were often sharp observers of court politics. They entertained, but they also survived by reading the room carefully. According to recorded chronicles, the king asked Bora a simple question. "Where have you been?" Bora replied that he had seen a deer hanging by its tail from a vineyard, as punishment for stealing figs. A ridiculous image. Absurd. Unexpected. At first, the king simply laughed. A normal reaction. Relief in a tense court. But the laughter did not stop. It grew stronger. Uncontrolled. Violent. Medieval medicine had no understanding of cardiac arrest. No emergency response. Only confusion. Within minutes, King Martin I collapsed. He never recovered. Chroniclers later wrote that the king died from laughter. But modern historians suggest a more likely cause. Heart failure triggered by intense strain. The real tragedy was not the joke. It was what followed. Martin left no legitimate heir. His death triggered a 2-year political crisis known as the Interregnum of Aragon. Multiple claimants. Uncertainty. Instability. In 1412, after negotiations and pressure, Ferdinand of Castile was chosen as king. This decision reshaped the balance of power in Iberia. One moment of laughter led to a political shift that influenced the future unification of Spain. Some historians debate whether the laughter story was exaggerated, but the chronicles recorded it, and history remembers it. Kings die in battle. Kings die from poison. But rarely does a king die laughing. In 1914, Europe was not peaceful. It was armed. Nations had built alliances like dominoes waiting to fall. All it needed was a push. The Austro-Hungarian Empire was old, powerful, and unstable. It ruled over many ethnic groups, Germans, Hungarians, Slavs. And in the Balkans, nationalism was rising. Archduke Franz Ferdinand was heir to the throne. He was not universally loved, but he represented the future of the empire. On June 28, 1914, he visited Sarajevo. It was a politically sensitive trip. Bosnian Serb nationalists saw Austria-Hungary as an occupying force. A small group of young revolutionaries waited along the route. They were members of a nationalist organization linked to Serbian networks. Among them, Gavrilo Princip, only 19 years old. The first assassination attempt failed. The bomb exploded behind the Archduke's car, injuring others, but not him. After the explosion, Franz Ferdinand made a decision. He would visit the wounded officers. The route would change. But the driver had not been informed clearly. He took a wrong turn, and then stopped to reverse. Gavrilo Princip could not believe it. The target was directly in front of him. By accident. 2 shots. One struck Sophie in the abdomen. One struck Franz Ferdinand in the neck. Witnesses recorded his final words. "Sophie, don't die. Stay alive for our children." Minutes later, both were dead. The assassination shocked Europe. But assassination alone does not start a world war. Diplomacy does. Austria-Hungary sent Serbia an ultimatum. Its demands were intentionally severe. Alliances began activating like a chain reaction. Russia mobilized. Germany declared war. France joined. Britain followed. Within weeks, Europe was at war. Not a small Balkan conflict, but a global catastrophe. Over 16 million people would die. Empires would collapse. Maps would be redrawn. Gavrilo Princip did not know he was starting a world war. Historians debate. Was it inevitable? Or was it this single moment? Sometimes history changes because of grand strategy. Sometimes because of ambition. And sometimes because a driver took a wrong turn. By 1962, the world was divided in two. The United States and the Soviet Union were locked in a Cold War. Both possessed nuclear weapons capable of ending civilization. On October 14, 1962, an American U-2 spy plane flew over Cuba. Its mission was routine reconnaissance. But the photographs it captured were anything but routine. The images revealed Soviet medium-range ballistic missile sites under construction, just 90 miles from Florida. On October 16, President John F. Kennedy was briefed. The Soviet Union had secretly placed nuclear missiles in Cuba, missiles that could reach Washington, D.C. in minutes. For 13 days, Kennedy and his advisors met in secret. Some demanded immediate airstrikes. Others warned it would trigger nuclear war. In Moscow, Nikita Khrushchev believed he was balancing power. The United States had missiles in Turkey. Why should the Soviet Union not place missiles in Cuba? Kennedy chose a middle path. A naval quarantine of Cuba. Any Soviet ship carrying military equipment would be stopped. On October 22, Kennedy addressed the nation. The world now knew, and fear became global. Soviet ships continued toward Cuba. If they crossed the blockade, the U.S. Navy would have to act. One wrong move, and missiles would fly. At the last moment, several Soviet ships slowed, then turned back. The first direct clash was avoided. Khrushchev sent a letter to Kennedy. Emotional, almost personal. He proposed removing the missiles in exchange for a promise not to invade Cuba. Then came a second message, more demanding. It insisted the U.S. also remove its missiles from Turkey. On October 27, a U.S. U-2 plane was shot down over Cuba. Its pilot was killed. Many advisors urged immediate retaliation. Unknown to the world at the time, a Soviet submarine, armed with a nuclear torpedo, was being harassed by U.S. forces. Its captain considered launching. Only one officer, Vasily Arkhipov, refused to authorize it. His decision may have saved millions of lives. Kennedy publicly accepted the first letter's terms. Privately, he agreed to remove U.S. missiles from Turkey later. A quiet compromise. On October 28, Khrushchev announced the missiles would be removed. The world stepped back from the edge. After the crisis, both nations realized how close they had come. A direct communication line was established between Washington and Moscow to prevent silence from causing war again.
For 13 days, humanity stood one decision away from destruction. Not because leaders wanted war, but because fear, pride, and miscalculation almost took control.
A city buried in ash. An army defeated by its own fear. A king who laughed one last time. 2 bullets in a quiet street. 13 days that nearly ended the world. different centuries, different continents, but the same truth. History does not always change through grand speeches or planned strategies. Sometimes, it shifts because of a mistake, a decision, a misunderstanding, or even a single second. Behind every turning point in history, there are human beings, imperfect, emotional, afraid, confident, human. Empires rise, empires fall. But history is not just dates and wars. It is moments, moments that echo for centuries. Today, these places are silent. Tourists walk where chaos once ruled, and the world moves forward, unaware of how fragile it once was. If you enjoyed traveling through these forgotten turning points of history, if you believe the past still matters today, then subscribe to Rahale Al-Tariq, because history is not just something we study. It is something we understand, so we don't repeat it. This was not just history. This was the moment. Everything changed.